Hello everyone, I hope you're well. It's Callum at Repair Wins, and I've got a quick one for you today. It's a Dell Inspiron that needs a Palmrest replacement. There's nothing wrong with the Palmrest, but the Palmrest and the keyboard are one assembly on these newer laptops, and there's a couple keys on the keyboard that aren't working. So I've already got the stuff set up on my desk. I've got the part right beside me, so I'm just going to put the machine down on the desk. I'll set the camera up overhead, and let's just get straight on with it, shall we? So I'm not going to bother testing. I trust the customer enough. I'm just going to take the machine apart, which is a case of undoing all of the screws that are on the back. And on these Dells, most of them are captive, and what that means is that they'll stay in place. So you unscrew it, and you'll start hearing a series of pops, pop, 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 and that's how you know it's done. This one's missing a screw up here, you'll notice. Some of the screws will come out, and some of them won't. So the ones that come out, I'm putting them in the tub. And the ones that stay captive obviously can just stay there. Now on these modern machines, it's usually the case that all the screws are the same length. But this makes me reminisce about the old days, because it used to be the case where you'd have a screw here and a screw here. You would pop the keyboard off, £10 for a new part, you'd put a new keyboard on and you'd be away. Right then, the screws are all out. There won't be any hidden under these little feet here. Dell stopped doing that. So I'm just going to start popping it apart, and the general consensus is that you don't use metal tools, but I've done this long enough to know exactly where to put the tool in, how much force to apply, and basically how to do it without scratching the housing up. You just get a bit more leverage with a metal tool, and it's easier to get a metal tool in. So I'm going to continue on using the metal tools, I think. Right, there we are, that's the machine open. And if at all possible, we'll keep the BIOS battery plugged in. Lovely. I just thought I'd bring the camera down a bit. And the reason for that is that I need, well, number one, I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. But number two, I've got to take every part out, so I'm going to be here for a little while. And I thought that, you know, people aren't going to stay engaged on a video if your view is from a mile away. Right, there's a BIOS battery on the back of there. So I'm not going to unplug these connectors, I'm going to leave them plugged in. And what we'll do is we'll just craftily remove the motherboard whilst keeping these two plugged in. I don't want the BIOS to lose its settings, just in case that triggers BitLocker. I mean, it shouldn't, but you know, you can't be too careful. So there's no real order to the way I'm taking the screws out, I'm just sort of removing them. And to be honest, I should really disconnect the battery, but it'll be alright. Just putting the screws off at the side in a pile. Right, I think, yeah, just 3 screws hold that battery in. And then I'm going to rip this piece of tape up. And now that it's up, I'm going to get my nails in and wiggle the connector free like that. And now the battery's free, so it can go off to the side. Right, I'll unplug only what I need to unplug, which is, I'll do the touchpad from this. In fact, no, do you know what? I'll try and leave all of it plugged in. But you'll notice that this won't spin, because these use a smaller head for some reason. So I'll do the touchpad last. And what I'm probably also going to end up doing, the customer isn't paying me for this, but it's a job I like to do anyway, is take the screen assembly apart and loosen the hinges up. So I'm going to free the cable for the screen and just work that over to here. Then I'll free the cable for the antennas. I say the cable, there's actually two antennas. Unplug them both, and then I'll do the same thing. There we are. I'll just put the antenna off to the side, or should I say the receiver. I'm guessing we've got 8 gigs of RAM, and the answer is that we do. If I have another 4 spare, I'll drop it in there. I won't charge the customer, I'll just let them know what I've done. And we're just going to continue with the disassembly, really. So this is broken. So if I do this, I'll be able to get the SSD out. There we are. And you'll notice that the screw post has come out with it. That's because these are really cheaply built machines. So I can only screw it down using this piece. So if this was going back into a laptop, you would just bend this piece of metal back and forth a few times until it breaks off, because you only need the one to hold it down anyway. But we're putting it into a new housing, so we're going to be alright. Right, nearly there everyone, but continuing forwards, I'm going to unplug the charging connector, same treatment. get under the two sides and just wiggle it back and forth. Lovely. And then I think that's all the screws holding the motherboard down, so it should be fairly free now. I'll need to unplug the keyboard. I'll obviously need to unplug the speakers, because they're in the way. We should pretty much be able to lift this thing out of the housing. Just undo the touchpad. So I'm going to get my tool under this hinge, and I'm pushing against my thumb. I'm not putting it in here and bending down. I'm using my thumb. The thumb is taking the brunt of all the force. Then I can fold that upwards, and you can just feel it just fighting to snap the entire laptop apart because these hinges are always so tightly cranked. Like this one is absolutely ridiculous, the amount of force they've cranked that down with. Absolutely ridiculous. Right, got to be gentle here in case there's anything I've missed. But no, that's fine. Right, so we can put this part of the sandwich out of the way. And let's focus in now on taking all the rest of the parts out of this housing. So the motherboard should be free. Note I say should, not is. It should be free. Right, okay, I'm liking that. I think this one screw for the fan does need to come out after all. Yeah, there we go. Right, so the board is now free. I'm going to grab these pieces and I'm just going to put this out of the way. Awesome. Now that it is, we'll do the speakers. Brilliant. And then that's pretty much all there is to it. We'll take the power button out. And then we'll do the charging connector. Wonderful. Oh, right. I'm missing the touchpad. So, none of this is difficult, it's just tedious. And obviously there is a risk of causing damage, which is basically the reason why my business exists, because people would rather pay me to run the risk of causing the damage. Here we are then. Got the new Palmrest on the desk, and the first thing to do, of course, is to put this little sticker on it, because why not? And then we'll do the easy part. So let's transfer the speakers over. Oh, and this one has a backlit keyboard, look. The old one didn't. So provided the motherboard has got the right circuitry, the customer's getting a backlit keyboard upgrade. Now I'll definitely make sure to tell her about that. Just make sure these orange pieces for the speaker are sat where they need to be. Because otherwise you'll have a speaker that rattles, and if you hand over a laptop that didn't have a rattly speaker and it's got a rattly one when you hand it back over, the customer's going to be coming straight back and they're going to want it fixed for free. Lovely. Then we can just route these wires back where they belong. And I find it easiest to just go along by hand and then sort of, you know, press them into place and then hold them down whilst I do the next bit. And once you've tucked it under the clip, generally, it then stays in place. Awesome, that's good. Let's see the power button because I always forget those. Just 2 screws to hold it down, look. So pretty much installation is just the reverse of removal. So you'll notice I took the speakers out last. Well, okay, I took the touchpad out last, but fine. Sue me, you know. There we go. Right, we'll do the touchpad. Hook it under. Just make sure I'm not trapping the keyboard back like ribbon cable. I think I'll move the speaker cable out of the way until I can sit this down. And then when this is sat down in place, I'll then put the cable back. So I'm not going to screw these all the way down. I'm going to twist the screw the wrong way until I hear a pop. And that's going to tell me that it started off in the threads. And then I'm going to start tightening it in part of the way down. Then the last one, which is hidden under here. Brilliant. And now I can tighten everything down. You just want to make sure all the screws are started off. A good thing to do here, by the way, is just to test the touchpad, so make sure it clicks. And this one clicks absolutely fine, so we can continue on. I'm just going to bring the motherboard back, put that vaguely in position. Really, I should have unplugged the fan before doing this. And just make sure I'm not trapping any cables or connectors. I think that's sat down where it's supposed to be. The motherboard's now in place. I've plugged the speaker in already, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run some of the connectors and plug those into place where they belong as well. So I'll start with the charging connector, which mercifully has gone straight into position where it needs to. And I remember last time it was tucked beneath the board, so I'm going to do the same thing and just tuck it down. I'm not using any force, by the way. If the cable didn't want to go into that place, then I wouldn't force it there, but that's where it has been designed to be. So that's fine, that can stay like that. We'll do this little hard drive cover. Now, for some reason, Dell use these laughably long screws on the fan. No idea why. I won't forget about the touchpad. Remember, we do the battery dead last. Alright then, I'm just going to screw the side of the machine on now. And remember, I'm not tightening these down all the way, I'm just tightening them most of the way. And then when the final one goes in, you can then tighten them down the whole way. Then as for this SSD, which has got this ripped out bit of screw mount, I'm going to hold onto it with some wire cutters, which isn't the right tool, but it won't require a lot of force, so I'll get away with it. Then I'll just break the screw free. There we are, look. Right, screw is broken free, and now the SSD can go back in. I've removed the bezel from this screen housing because I want to loosen up the hinges, because this one's quite a bit tighter than this hinge over here. I'm not going to bore you and show you the process. You've probably seen it in one or two of my other videos, and if you haven't watched one or two of my other videos, then don't waste your time because they're rubbish. But all I'm going to do is take a pair of pliers, put it on the nut that's here, and just turn it back a quarter of a turn or half a turn. It requires removing the screws and taking the hinge off, but it's a bunch of extra work and it doesn't make for very interesting watching, so I'm just going to do it off camera. I've put a drop of super glue beneath the hinge on the bit where it sits flat against the body of the laptop, and I'm just hurting the knuckle on my thumb by pressing down into it quite hard. I'm going to sit and hold it here for a few minutes. That's what the customer's paying for me to pay and hurt my hand. But I'm going to sit here, hold it for a few minutes, and then that's going to ensure that the hinge is at least as strong as it was before. Because, and you can see the same defect on the other side, you see where the plastic's cracking? Like that piece is fine, and then this one's cracking. Because they'll just crank the hinges too tightly and they don't reinforce the laptops enough. These cheap Inspirons are designed to fail in 3 or 4 years. It's embarrassing, really. I've jumped ahead a little bit here, but I've put the screen on and I've plugged the Wi-Fi antennas back in and screwed it down. I'm just going to plug the screen connector in now, and then when I've done that, I'm going to screw the screen hinges in. So screen connector plugs in, nice and simple. And then this runs, there's a notch here, so I'm guessing it runs under there. Yeah, that looks alright to me. And then we'll just put the screws in. Now you'll notice there's 4 screw holes, but I'm only going to put 3 screws in. Because obviously you've got screws that come through on the bottom cover, and they go into the 4th hole. I'm going to put the battery in, I'm going to screw it down, but I'm not going to plug it in yet. I've got a friend coming round in like 25 to 30 minutes, so I need to get through this job fairly quickly. But despite my need for speed, I'm not going to just shortchange the customer. I'm going to do the thermal paste. So I'm going to crack each screw free. I can't remember exactly what I quoted, but I quote a little bit more than what I think some businesses would quote to do a job like this. And the reason for that is that, as I've just demonstrated, I put screen issues right. I do thermal paste. Now, none of that is what the customer's asked for, but my experience teaches me it just means a laptop will run more reliably in the future. Because if I hadn't intervened with the screen, 6 months to a year, it would have broken off the laptop. Now that I have intervened, it's going to last a few years. So even though the customer's paid me £40 extra, I've given them another year or 2 of life in their laptop, provided, the motherboard stays okay. Right, so this is removed. I think you know the drill. We're going to use 2 cotton buds, one for the heatsink and then one for the chips. So just a cotton bud, break loose all the thermal paste. Then I'll flip it round and use the other side, making sure not to get this stuff on my hands. I don't like having thermal paste on my hands. And then I'll even bring the laptop closer. I'll just do the processor. And some people literally just do this. They clean the top of the die, and then they clean the top of this die and call it a day. I like to make sure I've cleaned the entire sort of pad, because technically these two shiny bits are the only two bits you need to do, but it's just bone idle laziness and not caring about your craft to not do the entire chip. Right, you can see there the die and the two pads are nice and clean because I've taken some of this stuff, which is near enough pure alcohol, and I've put it on a tissue and cleaned them. So I'm just going to put the RAM back. And I do indeed have a 4 gig stick spare. You can see right here, 4 GB. So I might as well just put that in there. Then all I have to do is add the thermal paste. Now, I always put a bit more on than your average person would. I've never ever had an issue doing it like that. But I do know that if I'm stingy and I try to save 2p on the thermal paste, then the laptop will overheat and it comes back. I'd rather just put a little bit more paste on than is needed, just so I can be safe. And then that way I can sleep soundly at night knowing that the machine will make it past the 3-month warranty period. And obviously, all joking aside, that the machine will continue to work for a good few years after fixing it. There's no point me fixing your laptop if it dies again in a week. Right, I'll screw the CPU down first, and then I'll screw the GPU down afterwards. Awesome. I don't know how charged it was, but I'm going to put the battery in, and the laptop won't turn itself on, because if you'll remember, we kept the CMOS battery connected the entire time. Just time to put the bottom cover on now. I've managed to tighten the wrong hinge screw down here and here, so I'm going to need to pop this back cover off, and then move the screws over one, move this one over one, and then put the cover back on. Just thought I'd include that little detail there. I'm not perfect. I don't have an official Dell charger, so I'm using an HP charger adapter connected to the machine, and that'll be enough to switch it on, and we'll see if it's working. And obviously if it switches on and gives us an output, then we'll know it's absolutely fine. Although with that being said, I don't recall plugging that keyboard in. I recall plugging the keyboard backlight in, but I don't recall plugging the keyboard in. There we go. In addition to sorting the keyboard, I've also screwed the back cover on. You can see all the screws are accounted for. This time I've pressed the power button, and you can see the caps lock LED is active. Now in the BIOS, when the caps lock LED lights up, it pretty much, that's called a life indicator on these laptops, and pretty much it means the laptop has come to life. It's just going to take a minute, it's going to reboot once or twice because I've increased the amount of memory. Here we are then, the laptop's switched on, working fine. Battery health is excellent, although that's not really important here. But you can see as well that it's got 12 gigabytes of RAM, just all the way down here. There we are then. My apologies for the poor lighting, but I've already taken the laptop, I've dropped it back off, so the customers got it back in their hands, in other words. I tested the keyboard, everything worked fine. Didn't think I'd bore you with it. But this is the old part. Palmrest and keyboard, one assembly. You can see it's held on with loads of these tiny little plastic rivet things, instead of the old models where it'd be 2 screws in the back of the laptop and then you would pop some clips and the keyboard would come out. I'm going to have a video soon trying to fix an HP G62, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It's just a shame though that these machines are no longer as repairable as they were. It doesn't cost any more, inflation adjusted, than it used to. It's just simple greed on behalf of the manufacturers, and no one's any more guilty than the other. HP, Dell, Lenovo, Acer, Asus, God, companies that don't even make laptops anymore, they all did the same thing, and they're all still doing the same thing. We're going the same way when it comes to our technology, and that is downwards. We're regressing, you know. This old pair of Bose headphones, I can at least replace the battery in them. It's a bit of a pain, but modern headphones wouldn't even last 2 years, never mind the 4 or the 5 that these have lasted. So yeah, you really do need to hold on to all the old stuff that you have. Squeeze as much life as you can out of it, and then when it breaks, fix it, alright? And when you fix it, do some preventative maintenance like I did with the hinges, just to make sure the repair is a quality one and that the repair lasts as long as possible. Anyway, this intro's going on a bit, So I'm just going to cut to the chase now. If you found the video useful, if you liked it, you enjoyed it possibly, then feel free to leave me a like. That would really help. Trying to grow the channel, say it every time, we need more reach. We need to get in front of more people, teach more people that repair is the answer, that repair is going to save them the money. And remember, as I like to say, keep the money in your own back pocket. Why give Dell £400 for a new laptop when you can spend a few pounds, fix it yourself, and then you've saved a huge amount of cash. Everyone needs more cash these days, especially with the government asset stripping everything, especially with the super wealthy wringing our bloody necks, you know, for every last penny we've got. We've not got much cash left to give them, by the way, but the cash that you do have, keep a tight grip on it, keep it in your own back pocket. Anyway, if you want to see where the channel goes, if you want to see more videos like this, then feel free to hit the subscribe button, possibly even consider sharing it with your friends. You know, the more views that come in, the more likes that land, the more subscriptions I get, the more compelled I'm going to be to keep spending my time talking to myself in this strange room with its foam walls and its wires that are running and its little blue tub from my childhood bedroom. Alright, I think I'm rambling here. I'm gonna get out of here. So I wish you all the best. Enjoy the rest of your day. If it's the evening, then have a nice day tomorrow, and I will see you later. Take care for now, and goodbye.